Welcome to A Date with Darkness podcast, where we will be discussing the impact of hurtful and abusive relationships, as well as racialized trauma, and how to overcome these things so that we can move through our pain to get the kind of healthy relationships we want, need, and deserve. I'm your host, Dr. Natalie Jones. I'm a licensed psychotherapist based out of California. While I hope that you find this podcast educational, informational, and entertaining, please note it should not be substituted for treatment with a licensed mental health professional. Some of the information presented on this podcast can be triggering to some of my listeners, so listener discretion is advised. Hello and welcome to the show. Just a little bit of housekeeping. I know it's been a little while since we've last chatted together, but I have a really special show planned for you today. And just a reminder, we do have the Date with Darkness support group on Facebook. If you are looking to get some support from other people who are healing from abusive relationships, and if you're looking to offer support, that group is available. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns for the show, you can email me at adatewithdarkness@gmail.com. Please do remember to like, share, and comment on this show. Leave positive reviews. That helps the show get noticed by others. But also, please share with a friend or family member who you think could benefit from listening to the show. That is the best way that you can help a small podcast such as this one. So thank you so much for tuning in. Today's guest is a special guest. We share some commonalities, so it was a real treat. I am also a fan of her podcast. It is psychotherapist Michelle Chalfant. She is the host of the Adult Chair podcast. And today we are going to be talking with her about that, about what it means to be sitting in our adult chair. Hello and welcome to the show, Michelle.
Hi, Natalie. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. I couldn't wait to get you on, and it's so good to finally meet you. I'm a big fan of your show, and we'll get into that in just a minute. So I've been following you for a while, and it helps to know that you live in my hometown. So that's always great to connect with a native from North Carolina. So for my listeners who don't know you, can you talk a little bit about who you are, what you do, and what drives the passion behind your work?
Okay, you said we only have an hour, so here we go. Buckle in. Okay, I am I'm a licensed therapist.
Okay.
I've done that for about 25 years. In addition to that, I'm a coach, holistic life coach. So I did that for probably, and let me back up and say about 10 years ago, I kind of took everything that I've known throughout my whole life and had learned since the age of 20, really, and kind of compiled it into what I call now a model for healthy living. It's called the Adult Chair. It teaches people how to be healthy adults. So for about the last 10 years, I've been talking about it for 5 years on my show, but it's been developing over the last 10 years. And this is where we are today. So it's really a manual for healthy living, because what I found is I grew up feeling like I was damaged goods. Even though I had what I thought was a quote unquote healthy family, there were things that didn't happen along the way. And being a therapist, of course, I learned like, oh yeah, I didn't get that. I didn't get validated, didn't learn boundaries. My self-worth wasn't where it needed to be. So I really learned, I was under the impression that there was something wrong with me, and I didn't love who I was. I didn't love myself. And so I'm kind of jumping all over the place, but so that is what I do now. I have created this model called the Adult Chair. I have the podcast called the Adult Chair. I do workshops. I have a membership. Everything is about the Adult Chair, and it's exploding, much to my surprise, way more than I ever dreamed it would be. But what I've come to learn is that it's interesting, Natalie, and you've probably learned this in your own practice, but we don't know how to be healthy unless we had these like ultimate caregivers that raised us. what is our touchstone? Our touchstone is whoever raised us. So if they weren't healthy, then we become like them, or, we might seek out help to become a little different. But the adult chair provides what healthy looks like. So that's my touchstone. I know I want to live in my adult chair. I know I want to be the healthiest person that I can be.
Okay, so Michelle, can you talk a little bit about what drives the passion behind the adult chair? Like, what is fueling you to do that?
Yeah. Like I was saying to you, I spent my life, if you had known me growing up, right, you would have thought, oh, she's got her stuff together. She looks normal. She's has friends. She has a boyfriend. But on the inside, I felt like, again, like there was something missing, something broken, something not right with me. I even had a visual. I'm so visual. I had I felt so damaged on the inside that I had a visual of this package with tape on it, like from UPS, that would have been shipped around the world at Christmas time and been damaged. Like that's how I felt on the inside. But on the outside, I was put together again, boyfriend, friends, like no one have ever known. So I remember thinking when I was probably in my early 20s, and I thought, you know what? I need to learn how to love myself, because the inner dialogue, the self-talk that I'm having right now
Yeah.
hates me. Like I hate myself. So
Yeah.
it was probably when I was in my early 20s, I said, I've got to learn how to love myself. Because I think if I don't know, even back then there was no internet. Okay. So I don't know if I read something. That's how old I am, Natalie. I don't know if I read something or I heard something, but I thought, I think I need to love myself. So I went on this blazing quest to learn how to love myself. And I remember one time, I was probably around maybe my late 20s. I'm trying to think of where I was when I heard it. And I was watching Oprah, and I was in some hotel room, I think with my husband. He was doing a job interview and I was with him, and she had on Dr. Phil. This is way back when, before he had his own show. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm sitting there watching Oprah and Dr. Phil, and they were talking to like a client or someone from the audience. And Dr. Phil said, well, here's your problem. You don't love yourself. You need to learn how to love yourself. And I remember I scooched to the edge of the bed where I was sitting, and I was like, here we go. Here's the magic answer. Like, how do I love myself? I need this answer. And then Oprah was like, yeah, exactly. You need to love yourself. And then they changed the subject. I'm like, wait, how do we do that? So I realized I will figure this out. So I have that kind of personality where I'm going to read everything I get my hands on. I'm going to take every class. I was already a therapist at that point, but I loved extra learning, any sort of certification I could take or training. So I did just that. And what I found was I would take, a training, and I would gain 15%. And I go, okay, and let me add that to my toolbox. Let me add this, and let me add this. So what I realized though along the way is that I wasn't the only one feeling like this. Most people don't really shout from the rooftop, or now that we have social media. Back then there was none, but I have low self-worth, or I hate myself. So I found along the way I was getting a little bit better and a little bit better and a little bit better, and I'm using everything I'm learning with my clients, and they're starting to change right in front of my eyes. So as I went along my life path, I just realized it's not just me that needs this. So my mission became a greater or grander mission. I'm I've got to learn how to do this and break it down. And the way that I learn is very simply. I don't want to read a big giant book and not understand what I'm reading. So what I learned, again, so fast forwarding to about 10 years ago, I was working with another mentor of mine, and we were doing chair work and parts work and all the stuff that I love.
Yeah, I love that.
Do you love that? And the empty chair technique and all this. And she had said, we need to get over and sit in that adult chair. And we were doing group work with 10 other people. And I'm I remember when she said it, and I was like, holy crap, that's what we're all missing. This healthy adult. And it was sort of the perfect storm of everything I'd studied for 20 years. And she'd said that, when something happens in divine time, or right at the right time. And I was like, that's what we all need. So I was, again, learning and morphing and growing and sharing. And that's really was the birth of the adult chair model. And it just kept growing, and I kept sharing it with my clients and kind of building it and molding it as I went along. And and my clients kept saying, is there a book on this? Is there a book on this? I'm like, no, but I'll write the book. So I wrote one book. I've got another one coming. And then
Nice.
I had a producer, or excuse me, I had a web designer, and he said, he was also a podcast guy. And he goes, you've got something here. He goes, I'm writing your whole website out. He goes, you need to take this. People need to hear your message. I was like, well, I guess I'll do it for my clients. And we just hit 3 million downloads on the show. And I'm like, wow.
That's
I was like,
amazing.
wow, like it's happening so fast. But I realized we're all in this together. And nobody really knows, or I shouldn't say nobody. So many of us are looking for this really healthy adult. So that's my mission. That's why I keep going and I keep adding to it. I just created a coaching certification, the adult chair coaching certification,
Nice.
because so many people ask me all around the world, like, is there an adult chair coach or a therapist that lives in Michigan or
Nice.
Detroit or, you know, in Australia? So I just developed that. So it's really happening to me. But the call is from people all around the world that we're all in the same boat.
Yeah.
We're all in the same boat. So
Nice. I'm so happy that you did that. And now I have to put you on the spot.
yes, I
What's
like being put on the spot. I'm okay.
What is a healthy adult? For listeners who are listening,
Yeah.
you know, and they've only had models of a certain caliber,
Yeah.
you know, or they don't really know, you know, what is normal, what is healthy, what is good. Can you break that down to us, what a healthy, functioning adult should look like and how they should look in their relationships with others?
Yeah, for sure. Number one, when we are living in what I call our adult chair, which is the healthiest version of ourselves, we are living in the present moment. So what that means is I'm not living in story or assumption. So I'm not looking into the future and guessing what's coming. I'm not looking in the past and making up stories about what happened in the past. I'm living right here in the moment, and I'm seeing what arrives in the moment. So that's number one. So we live in the moment. We live with presence. We live with boundaries. That is such a foreign word to so many of us, right? Like we know how to take care of ourselves. We see ourselves as valuable on the inside. So therefore, I'm going to set a boundary. We live with empowerment. We live with inner strength. We live, this is a hard one for people, but we learn how to observe our thoughts and not buy into every single thought that we have. We learn how to observe our emotions and not fall into them and get carried away by them.
Sure.
We take responsibility for our lives. We apologize. So when we're in relationship with someone else, if I've hurt you, I'm going to say to you, hey, you know what, Natalie? What I said to you wasn't okay, and I'm really sorry. And so we own our reality. We apologize. I then might ask you, what can I possibly do to make that up? I'm so sorry. I want to make it up to you. So it's really this just very healthy living. It's not raging. It's not reacting. I'm very in touch with the emotions that I'm feeling, and I let them process through me. I don't block my emotions. So those are a bunch of qualities that we would have in our adult chair.
Nice.
So, yeah.
And I probably should have asked this one first, now further reflecting on it, but my question is, can you pick up where Dr. Phil left off and tell us how to love ourselves?
Yeah, that's
Is
such a
that
good
some
question.
of, you know, your first answer, or do you feel like there's a different process to that?
Yeah, that's a great question. What happened for me was over the course of all these years is what I realized is even though I am Michelle and even though you're Natalie, we as human beings are made up of many, many parts. So in other words, there's a part of me that's a judger. There's a part of me that's the inner child, or the child part that has all of our emotions. There's the part of me that's a perfectionist. There's a part of me that's afraid. So what we want to do is to get to know our inner parts and all those inner voices, because how can we go from, if you have an animal or a child like a cat or a dog or anything, and love that little child or that animal so much and hug them, and then you're a person that loves, and then in the next breath you're judging yourself. In other words, we're putting our emphasis on many different parts within. So I think about a human being like a puzzle of 100 pieces, if not more, and we have 100 different parts. So the way that we learn how to love ourselves is to go through, again, so the adult chair model is made up of 3 distinct chairs or phases of life. So we've got the child chair, which is age 0 to 6. We've got the adolescent chair, which is pre-adolescence, adolescence, and post-adolescence, which is age 7 to 25-ish. And then if we had parents that modeled for us what healthy looks like, then from the age of 25 on, we slide right into that adult chair and we're healthy and life goes on. Which you might know this, but 97% of us, we don't go there. We stay in our adolescent, which means the way we handle things is, we live in story assumption. We judge ourselves. We judge others. We're perfectionistic. We're codependent, all of these things. But yet our physical body keeps growing into adulthood. So the way that we love ourselves is we get to know where we are, which chair I'm in, and which part is speaking. And we understand why that part is saying what it's saying. We get to know that part much better. Then we learn to have compassion for that part. And from compassion comes like, after like comes love. So for me, self-love was a process. It was learning, why am I, who's judging me? We hear that inner voice, right? That comes out of left field that says, you're so bad. Who's going to want to listen to your podcast? Who's going to want to do this? All the inner critic part. Okay. So I listen to that. I would listen to that part and go, wait a minute. Who is this part? I would get an image. I would get to know it. I would journal about that part. What does this part want to say? I'd put my pen in my hand and I would let that part have a voice, pen to paper. I'd write about it. And then I would sit from my adult, the woman I am today, the age I am today, and you can do a dialogue with that part. Again, journal that part. But I'm really breaking down, where'd this voice come from? Oh, wow, this sounds like my mother's voice, or this sounds like my father's voice, or my grandmother's voice. So I learn that's not even my voice, but I adopted it and I really don't want it anymore. So no, thank you. So I found that when we understand where the voices are coming from and what their motivation is, they morph and they get quieter. They just want our attention. It's no different than a little kid that comes up to you and goes, mommy, 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 mommy. And we go, what? And they go, I have to go to the bathroom. And you go, oh, let me go take you to the bathroom. These parts are the same way. If the inner critic is really loud, it wants our attention. So we have to learn how to turn toward those parts. And most humans turn away from, numb, eat, drink, have sex, gossip. Like we do everything instead of turning toward that part. But if we can turn toward that voice or that part, I promise you, I've done this almost 30 years, they morph.
Yeah. How does one do that?
And we can like that.
Yeah. How does one turn toward those parts when they're used to avoidance?
Yeah. So it's getting curious. Like, so if you hear a voice that says, you're such a loser, Natalie, you've got nothing going on Friday night, who's going to want to call you? And that voice is saying that to you. You say, okay, wait a minute, close your eyes. And you can get a sense. Now, some people are very visual. Some people are not. Some people are more auditory. Some people are more sensing. So with my clients, I'll say, hey, what do you see? Who's saying that? Do you get a sense of who that is? What does it look like? Some people will say, wow, it looks like it's my 8-year-old. It looks like me, but I'm 8. Or they'll say, I can't see anything, but I sense that it's something deep inside of me and it's a really sad part. Great. So we're getting a sense of that part. So when I work with parts, that's what I do. So it's working with the woman we are today, the age we are today. So I'll say, I'm Michelle, I'm 53, I'm an adult and I'm healthy. And I really want to help you. I want to get to know you. And we dialogue with those inner parts. Again, you can do it through visualization of imagining that part in front of you. You can journal. Like I said, give the pen, put pen in hand. This is the doorway into the unconscious mind or the subconscious mind, and just start writing, say, okay, inner critic, what do you need me to know? It's trying to get our attention. So once we write out or we hear from that part, I'll say things like, what do you want me to know? What do you need from me? And then here's the most powerful question. How old do you think I am? This is mind-blowing to me. I've done this for so many years and I've worked with so many clients with this. And typically when we say things like, hey, how old do you think I am, inner critic part? And you go with the first thought that comes to you, you'll hear things like, you're 10, you're 7, you're 4. And it's like, what? It thinks I'm 4. Yeah. Can you let it know that you're 53 years old, or you can let it know that you're 40 years old instead? And then that part right there starts to morph because it doesn't know. Because when these parts are formed within us, it's because something happened. Maybe it's a little baby trauma. Maybe it's a big trauma. Maybe it's just mommy yelled at me when I was 4 years old, and that part said, "Don't ever do that again. Don't push your brother down again, or mommy's going to yell at you." And so that inner critic starts getting formed then.
Yes.
So, you know what I mean? So the more that we get to know these parts, the more those parts morph, shift, change, and transform. It's not to say that I don't have an inner critic anymore. It's very quiet. And now when it rises up, I'll go, "Oh, what would you like?" I'm here. And I'll say, "I'm here. I'm Michelle. I'm the adult. I'm an adult. What do you need?"
Yeah.
I want to hear from you. And it might say, "Well, you're a loser because of da-da-da-da-da." I'll say, "Thank you so much. That's not true, but thank you." And it's like, oh, all right. It doesn't get my attention like it used to, though.
Yes, that's great that you've had that kind of success. For people that are listening and they're like, "Oh, I want to do that," can you give us a timeline of how long that takes? Because I think, and the reason why I want to do that is because I think that people feel like, if they start therapy, or if they start, coaching or whatever, this should be an instant process.
Right.
Can you give us a timeline of what that looks like and what needs to happen?
Yeah. I just want to say one of the most important parts, I believe, of self is the inner child. And when we start working with the inner child part, I really do find that things start to morph and change very quickly, but it depends on each person. If you're willing to look and work with your inner child every day, and it might just mean that you need 5 minutes a day. I'm not saying you've got to spend an hour a day with your inner child, but spend some time checking in 3 days a week. You're going to get to the root of some big stuff and start integrating that part. Because what happens with the inner child part is this is the part of us that holds emotions, is vulnerable, has our true needs, like not food, shelter, water, but I need a hug. I need you to see me. I need you to validate me. This is where intimacy is. So when we integrate this part, first we get to know it, then we integrate it. Man, I find people change so quickly. Someone might come in with anxiety. In my opinion, anxiety is the physical manifestation of unfelt emotions. So I, again, zero right into the inner child. That's where the emotions are. So that tells me they're not in touch with their inner child.
Yeah.
I have a free offering. Okay. It's 100% free. All they have to do is go to theadultchair.com/inner child. It's videos, it's guided meditations to help you to connect with your inner child, and journaling prompts to get you to help you to build the relationship with your inner child.
Good.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Thank you for that. I also wonder, in your experience in what you do, how much is that process impacted by if you still have a toxic parent, or, that person that contributed to your inner critic, if you're still in a relationship or still kind of ongoing with that person, how much is that process affected or hindered, or is that slowed down in any way?
It depends on how brave that person wants to be and how much they want to get healthy. Because one of the things, if they're in a relationship with someone that's toxic, let's say, and it's a parent, I'm thinking of a client that I worked with, and she was very codependent with her mom. Her mom was a narcissist and abusive. Like, she was verbally abusive, but this girl had taken it her whole life. Excuse me. She didn't know any other way. And I said, let's talk about boundaries. So we talked about boundaries, and she never set a boundary with her mom. And we worked on setting boundaries. And then it was quite the process with her mom. Her mom thought something was wrong with her, that she would want to, quote unquote, separate in that way. But how long was your question? How long does it take?
Yeah. Or is that process is it hindered or slowed down in any way when you're still in the trenches, let's say your parents are maybe dependent adults, or you have a relationship with them, maybe you want your children to have grandparents, for whatever the reason may be, if you're still around that hypercritical, toxic, or narcissistic parent,
Yeah.
how does that affect you?
Well, I would suggest if they were my client to spend less time with that person,
Mhm.
number one. So there are a few things when we're dealing with these, because the problem is, it's not a problem, it's a quandary. People say, well, I don't want to lose my parents,
Yes.
but I don't want them to talk to me in this way. I don't want them to treat me like this anymore. And I've tried to tell them not to, and they don't listen. Well, that's a classic. Like, well, sounds, again, I don't really even like labels, but it's information to know, well, this person has narcissistic
Yeah.
tendencies or, narcissistic
Traits.
diagnosed, or
Yeah.
traits. So we have to learn then when we're adults. So we are choosing then to stay in a relationship with this person. We might limit our time with them. I'm going to teach them how to let it go and don't let anything stick on them that their
Mm.
parents say. So then they can remember, wait a minute, my mother or my father, whomever it is, really has a mental illness. Like it's a problem. Like, it's not like they're choosing it. They're not aware of what's going on. And if they're really hurtful, again, I know some people have severed relationships with their parents over this.
Mm.
I don't encourage any of it because I think it's so personal. It really depends on the person. But I'm going to encourage, like, you feel really upset every time you leave your mom's. It might be time for you to create a little distance because
Yeah.
it's throwing you. Because a true narcissist, they're not going to respect your boundaries.
They're not.
They're not, unfortunately. I wish I had a magic pill for these clients of mine that come in with that. But yeah, it's just, there's no easy answer when it comes to that. If someone's married to a narcissist, it's going to, I would talk to them more about leaving. And that's easier sometimes, of course, than when you have parents.
Sure. And I definitely agree wholeheartedly with what you're saying. For those people that have inner child wounds and they're
Mhm.
stuck in that version of the chair,
Yeah.
what does that look like? What sort of day-to-day behaviors or thinking style patterns is that person engaging in?
What did you say? If they're stuck in the child chair?
Inner child.
Yeah.
Yeah, or if they're having some inner child difficulties, but yeah, stuck in the child chair and they're sort of struggling with
Hmm.
inner child wounds.
Hmm.
What what can we see from, how can someone know that that's where their wounding is, essentially?
One of the first things I say to anybody is like, how does that make you feel? What's going on with your emotional state? So I know if somebody is cut off from their emotions and they're not feeling, they're stuck in their inner child is not even existing. Like, it's trapped somewhere.
Wow.
It's hidden away. Um, Someone that has a lot of rage, someone that has a lot of, explosive anger, someone that talks, people that talk, and they're not connecting to the body. I notice people that talk, they're not connecting into their body. They're not present. They're not present with what's going on. So I know that that's inner child work. I point so many people to their inner child right away because it's gold. It's like, what are you feeling?
Mm.
What are your needs? So many of us don't even know what our emotional needs are. Do you need a hug? I don't know. Do you need someone to tell you I love you? I think so. So I really want to work with that inner child so they get clear on what they need. Vulnerability,
Mhm.
have they shut that? I work with adults that say, I can't get vulnerable. I don't know. I feel shut down. That tells me, again, inner child is locked away.
Mm.
Let's do some inner child work around that.
Mhm. Absolutely. And you have people, I'm quite sure, that come to you
Mm-hmm.
and they say, I don't know why I'm this way. My
Mm-hmm.
childhood was fine. My
Yes.
parents and I were fine. We had a good relationship. So
Yeah.
there's a minimization or denial there, if you will. What do you
Yeah.
say to that, or how do you sort of address that with that sort of the disconnect from the
Yeah.
emotions or what really happened?
Excuse me. I was just speaking with my coaches about this morning
Yeah.
because I said, as human beings, when we're growing up, we oftentimes don't know that our childhood was not healthy. It was normal, quote unquote, normal. My life was normal. I had a happy childhood. I've worked with many clients like that. And then the more we dig, I'll say, well, tell me more about that. What was it like for you? Was there drinking? Was there this? Was there that? Well, no, I never got any hugs, but it was fine. I wasn't abused. My dad would drink sometimes, or I remember working with one client, and after she told me she had a very normal childhood and it was happy, she said, well, there was just a couple times my dad held a knife up to my mom's throat. I was like, wow, okay. That's normal, huh? She goes, yeah. And I said, that's not normal with most families. Like, that's not healthy. That's not normal.
Yeah.
And she was shocked. She goes, well, he just had some anger, but I know my friend's father, he had anger too. I'm like, but that wasn't normal. And what we do when we're growing up in our households, we see our parents, most of us, almost all of us, but most of us see our parents as like Superman and Wonder Woman. Like, they're like the best of they're never going to do anything wrong. And no matter what, even though daddy, yelled at mommy, or mommy yelled at daddy, or they're on drugs or whatever it is, don't divorce, don't separate, they are so worried. So they never want to paint their parents as bad parents. I never do that either. I invite my clients to just get into reality, and we need to discern what was healthy and what was not healthy. So I don't look at parents with any judgment ever, because we all really do the best we can. Like, even if your dad was an alcoholic and a fall down drunk, that was the best he could do. But we need to get clear that that was not healthy. So that's what I do with my clients over that. And if they're stuck in that child, I'm like, we got to help that inner child know that was not okay, because that your inner child's hiding. Yes. They're so afraid.
What keeps people stuck in inner child phase?
That's a good question. What keeps clients stuck in the inner child? I think that they're not necessarily stuck in the inner child. When I think about that question, I think about the inner child part that is tucked away or separated from self. They had to not feel their emotions, so they tucked that. It's sort of like we shut the valve off. It's like we shut the valve off from feeling. We shut the valve off from having any needs, because my parents couldn't take care of my emotional needs. So I'm just not going to have any. When I hear people say that, I wonder, hey, when you close your eyes and you think back to 0 to 6, do you have a sense of this little kid inside of you? And a lot of people go, no. Well, could it be they're in the closet? Are they locked in the basement? Are they in a dark forest? Clients will be like, yeah, they're really far away. I'm like, yeah, I wonder what we need to do to bring them back. So it's not that they get stuck in the inner child. I think more they get separated from that part.
Yeah. It sounds a lot like it's a survival mechanism.
100%. Yeah.
So now, if we talk about people that are in the adolescent chair, what does that look like? What sort of behaviors are they engaging in?
Yeah. So the adolescent part of us is when the ego starts to develop around age 7. So when the ego comes online, it tells us that we're separate. So I'm separate from you. I've got to defend myself. In fact, I've got to keep myself alive. At the core of the ego is fear. And it says, I've got to keep myself alive no matter what. So the ego says, who I am might not be okay. So I need to start morphing who I am and becoming maybe someone else, or wearing a mask. So if I'm at school, I'm going to be the jokester, even though I'm really not the jokester at home. But I'm going to but I get good feedback when I'm when I'm a jokester.
Yeah.
I got really good feedback when, let's say, I got praised when I came home with an A. And my whole family had a party, and that felt really good. So I'm going to go out and get another A. And all of a sudden, before we know it, we become perfectionists because we're getting praised for that. But I get shamed when, my room was a mess. So the ego's sort of scanning for what is it that's going to keep me safe in my tribe. Because let's face it, the part of our brain that's at play here that never updated from 500,000 years ago says, if you get kicked out of your tribe, you're going to get killed. You're going to get eaten by a T-Rex or whatever was around 500,000 years ago. But So the ego is doing has all these strategies to keep us in our tribe. Tribe meaning family, friend group, extended family group, work group, whatever it is. So I'm going to change who I am to make sure that you accept me no matter what.
Yes.
So that's the adolescent. So within the adolescent, things that will form would be, again, perfectionism. Again, in our adolescent chair, it's ego. So ego only lives in past and future. It does not live in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
It's always scanning in the ahead and future going, how do I keep myself safe? And I've got to base it on the stories from my past. And most of the time when we think about our past, our stories are distorted. Well, this happened because of that. It's like, no, that's not really how it happened. But the ego believes it. So it projects into the future thinking that that's how to keep myself safe. But this is where you'll find perfectionism, people-pleasing, codependency, narcissism, blaming, shaming, shoulding ourselves. We should ourselves. I should have done that. Should is very shaming. But it's trying to keep us on this very tight path in order to keep ourselves alive at its core. Consciously, we don't know that, but unconsciously. It's the seat of the unconsciousness. It's a very reactive chair, or the ego is very reactive. It's, again, it reacts quickly. I got to keep myself safe. What do I need to do now? Oh my gosh, should I go to the party? I don't want to go to the party, but they're not going to like me. I'm going to say yes to the party. There's no consciousness. There's no truth. It's in order to stay part of the group.
And what keeps us separated from that part, do you think, of ourselves, the adolescent self? What do you think is going on there?
See, I think that we're actually not separated from that part. We mostly live here. We live here as adults.
Yes.
No matter what age we are, we have an emotional age. I have always read from about 12 to 15 years old.
That's awesome.
We live from this adolescent chair mentality, emotionally speaking, but with physical bodies that continue to age. So I can come across somebody that's 65 years old and they're living in their adolescent chair. They're reactive. They might be codependent. They might be a people pleaser. If you think about it, all of those things are very unconscious. They're all very reactive states and they lack awareness. So when I work with somebody, I show them, well, this is what, or I talk to them about, hey, this is the adult chair. Our adult is the healthiest version of ourselves. So when you show up as a people pleaser or as a judger, how does that feel? How does that make you feel? And all I'm doing is raising awareness around it, because typically, even if we're codependent, we just react in that way.
Yes.
We don't even know that that's what we're doing, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. One question I have for you, I'm curious about it. It sounds like your podcast and your program is doing well. Mm-hmm. When you started this, and now that it's grown exponentially, can you talk a little bit about how your parents perceived what you're doing?
You mean with the adult chair model?
Correct.
Like developing this whole thing?
Yeah, and knowing what it's about and just like the journey. Can you talk a little bit about how your own family was receptive to that?
Yeah, for sure. My father unfortunately passed away about 20 years ago, so he was not here to experience this. But my mom and my sister and cousins and aunts and uncles have been, and they love it because they've seen me grow. Yeah. One of the things that we do from our adolescent is we have a lot of blame. So I walked around for so many years, probably into my 30s, and blaming my parents. Like, I'm so codependent because you didn't do this and that and the other thing. You didn't have good boundaries with me. And we had a great relationship, but I still had this, I was stuck in the story of blame. And when I learned the adults take responsibility for their part and move on, like let it go. Not that I'm giving people a pass.
Sure.
But I'm doing it for myself. I needed to get healthy. Yes. So it was about me letting go. And my family started seeing me really change who I was. And of course, they started calling me saying, well, what do I do about this? And how would you do this with the adult chair? And I like this adult chair because it's very simple to understand this model and very simple to apply. So they would say, well, I'm really a perfectionist, or I
Mm.
can't stop blaming my husband for this. What do I need to do? Or
Yes.
how do I get out of this adolescent? And okay, so I'm realizing after I learned your model that I'm not healthy. Most people, when I had an office, I don't have an office anymore because of
Y-
COVID, but
Yeah.
when I'd introduce the model, in person with the 3 chairs, and I do a little skit, I'm like, here's your child, this is the adolescent, this is the adult. Probably 90% of the people would start to cry, and they would
Mm.
say, oh my gosh, like, that's me, that's my mother, I'm stuck in the adolescent. And I do it when I do a lot of adult chair workshops all around the United States. And
Mhm.
same thing, people are like, that's me, I'm stuck there. But people love it. They're like, but you give me hope. A lot of people say, I have hope. And my family did the same
Yeah.
thing. And they were so supportive. They love
That's
it too.
amazing. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Because I can certainly see sometimes when people start to heal,
Yeah.
if they grew up within a certain environment, family or people that are closest to them can certainly recoil or lash
Mhm.
out or say you're acting
Yeah.
funny and all this other kind of stuff. So that's amazing that
Yeah.
they were able to be an alliance and take your program and learn all those tools from you.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, there were some people, I have to say, just a funny story. Like my mom used to call me all the time and be like, can you help me? Da, 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 da. And I love my mom. We have a great relationship.
yeah,
But I remember saying to her, because I was getting healthy enough to
yeah.
say enough. And I remember saying to my mom, you know what? I think it's time you find another therapist. I can't be your
Uh-oh.
therapist anymore because that's really unhealthy for me. Right. And she's like, what do you mean? You're my therapist. I said, not anymore. It's really unhealthy and it's starting to
Yeah,
affect me. And I'm not a good therapist for you. You really need someone unbiased that doesn't know,
nice.
and she says, well, if you're not going to be my therapist, I don't need a therapist. And I said,
Mm.
okay. And in my mind, I'm like, what? Like, who doesn't need like a therapist or coach or somebody,
Right? Absolutely. I ask myself that all the
Life is
time.
hard.
Yeah, life is hard. Not only that, but yeah, you need a mental laxative weekly, I think.
Thank you. I like that. I like that term now. A mental laxative. So true.
It
It's
is. It's
so
like it's
true
so much
though.
stuff, especially now during the pandemic, the protest,
Yeah.
the election, all of it. You name it. I don't
All of
know how
it.
people are just kind of going through it, and if they're living in solitude, especially, I don't get it. But hey,
I
to each his
agree.
own.
I
Uh,
agree.
with the chairs or with the stages of life,
Hmm.
do you find that people are usually just in one phase, or can they sort of vacillate
Hmm.
between all
Yeah.
three? Um,
We bounce.
yes.
We bounce chairs throughout the day. Again, most of us live primarily in the adolescent chair.
Yeah.
But what I have found is the more aware we become of our lives, our choices. So, if I say something and I snap at my husband, let's just say, the old Michelle might have been like, well, whatever, he deserved it, right? I'm making this up. But
Yeah.
the new and improved healthy me would say, hey, you know what? I'm really sorry. I had a stressful day today. I yelled at you and I apologize. Like, dang, like that's healthy, right? So,
Absolutely.
but that's when I'm in my adult. And it takes practice, but I find that the more that we sit in our adult, the more used to that chair we get, and we start to notice there's a true energy that when I'm in my adult, it's not that I'm sitting in Zen lotus position, Indian style all day. However, I'm conscious. I'm taking responsibility, and I like how this feels over here.
Hmm.
Then when I slide, I'll know I snapped at my husband. That was my adolescent, or I'm having a temper tantrum. That's my child, like I want what I want when I want it. That's a child. Like that's being stuck in that wounded child. I want it right now. And
Yeah.
that's the child, right? So the more that I spend time in the adult, which is very conscious, it's very aware of everything,
Mm.
the more I like that energy. And I'm just speaking about myself, but this is what people tell me. I'm really getting this. I know now how it feels to live in my adult. And I know when I slide out of that, and man, I want to come back as fast as I possibly can. So, But we do bounce chairs very quickly. We can get triggered. Triggers, adolescent chair. If I'm triggered and I fall into it, I'm in the adolescence, the ego reacting to an unconscious belief. So
Absolutely. And I can certainly understand and appreciate that. One other thing that I'm thinking of, right,
mhm.
is if I go through this and I'm working on improving myself,
Mhm.
what if I'm married or in a
Mhm.
relationship with someone who's not? I know we talked about the parents because I know that that's where a lot of the inner critic comes from. But what
Yeah.
if I'm now, living the adult life with my own family, of my own children, my own husband or wife or whatever the case may be, partner?
Mhm.
Um, how does that look a little bit different? And do you advise that a little bit differently than you do with people who have the toxic parent wounds?
Are you saying if, let's say let's just use an example, like the wife is living more healthy and the husband's not? Is that what you're
Correct.
saying? Yeah. And is that a problem?
Yeah, how do we
Yeah.
manage that? Because I can
Yeah.
imagine that there would be a lot of resistance there.
There is. Yeah. It's hard because what I find is, as you well know, when we start to get healthy,
Yeah.
we don't want to go in reverse, right? It's like, but I'm in this great place now. I want my partner to walk with me, like hold my hand and let's go. But they may not be where you are. And once we continue to get healthier and healthier, that becomes I'm going to use this word loosely, but a very healthy addiction. Like I want to keep getting healthier. So it's like
Yes.
I want to keep stepping forward. It
Yes.
can be a problem if the partner that you're with cannot honor where you are and that you are in two separate places and
Mm,
it's okay. And that's just radical acceptance of who each other are. It can be a problem because I remember I'm thinking of a client I had and she just said, oh gosh, I had so much anxiety. I started to meditate every day and I felt so much better. And she would sit down to meditate and her husband would make fun of her, and he would talk down to her for doing that. And she says, what do I do? I said, keep meditating because he's not being in his adult and you're doing something, empowering yourself. You feel better. You're
hmm.
working with anxiety. How can that be bad or wrong? We're all here to evolve, being humans. I don't care who we are. We're here to evolve and to become healthier. That's what I think we do. Even I'm not going to get into a big soul discussion, but I think as
Yes,
souls, we come here to learn and grow and to
absolutely.
experience life from birth till death. And some of us go, for lack of a better word, faster than others, and some of us are stuck behind. And it can be difficult, but if your partner can just at least honor that you're in a different place than they are. I have men that I work with that are like, my wife doesn't get it. Like, can you help her? I'm like, I can't, but she will catch up to you. And, maybe one day she'll want to go to yoga and meditate or whatever, or just be more conscious, and maybe not. I remember this one woman or this guy, he had realized like he was drinking too much. So he stopped drinking. Therefore, he stopped hanging around the same friend group. Therefore, he started going to like, I don't remember, like some sort of like meetup group that was like meditation or conscious awareness. He kept going. And his wife was hanging out around the old crowd,
Mm,
going out and getting drunk every weekend, and he's like, what do I do? I don't resonate with that anymore. And sometimes relationships end because of that alone, because we become two different people.
absolutely.
But um, yeah, so it can be hard. But I find if the other partner can at least honor where you are and not make fun of you for something like meditating,
Yeah,
it's okay.
I
Yeah.
agree. And this is my last question about the program that I'm going to pick your brain on, so to speak. And maybe you can answer this one or maybe not. But with culturally speaking,
Hmm.
do you feel like this program is applicable and equally successful across cultures?
100% yes. It's applicable to every human on the planet. Yes.
Good.
Yeah, because healthy is healthy. Living with awareness is living with awareness, no matter if you're man, woman, or what color you are. It's being healthy and being aware. Who shouldn't say, I'm sorry if they've hurt another human being?
Mm-hmm.
That's being healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Who shouldn't take responsibility of their lives? No one, like
Mm-hmm.
everybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Living in the present moment is
Mm-hmm.
healthy no matter who you are in the whole world.
Mm-hmm.
Living with empowerment, living with boundaries, learning how to witness thoughts.
Mm.
That's across the board with
Yeah.
any human being. Observing the inner critic is a healthy thing for anybody. So
Mm-hmm.
absolutely, this is what I call simple psychology, grounded spirituality, and that can apply to anybody on the planet.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So, if people want to connect with you, and thank you so much for answering those questions.
Yeah, of
If people
course.
want to connect with you, learn more about your program, or just learn more about you, tell them where they should go or how
Yeah.
they can connect.
Yeah, really easy. Theadultchair.com. Very
Mm-hmm.
easy.
Mm-hmm.
And I really want to offer your listeners theadultchair.com/inner child if they really want to get in there and start doing some really beautiful inner child work,
Nice.
and learn how to connect with that part that, unfortunately, Natalie, I think, as you know, so many of us have disconnected from. We've just
Yes.
disconnected from our emotions. That younger inner
Yes.
part of us, that precious sacred little part, is we're disconnected from. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the source of self-worth and self-love to me, is the inner child. So yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, any upcoming projects that we can support you on?
Yeah, we've got well, because of COVID, unfortunately, things have gotten postponed, but we've got a workshop coming up in Charleston, or actually on the beaches of
Oh,
Charleston, and that's going to
nice.
be the end of April. That's an adult chair
Yeah,
workshop. It's a 3-day intensive.
nice.
And that gives people really the opportunity to apply what they've learned.
Mm,
What is the adult chair? You get to experience working with your inner child, working with your shadow parts and
nice.
triggers, and then also experiencing the energy of your own adult. So we've got that. And of course, I'm excited to offer again, we're going to run, this is a new annual event, our adult chair coaching certification. It's open
Nice.
to anybody. It is a turnkey business. You will
Mm,
graduate and you will be hanging a shingle and you will have clients. That
nice.
is a big part. Yeah. And you'll know how to be your own adult, an adult chair.
Absolutely. Oh,
So
great. I might take you up on
yeah.
that offer. That's
Yeah.
awesome. So it sounds like, and then you said the book.
I
Um,
do have a book. Yeah. And I'm writing another book.
can you
So
tell us the name of the first book?
it's just the Adult Chair Guide to Loving Yourself.
Okay,
It's a little
nice.
mini book. Yeah, it's a very short book with the basics of the adult chair. It's got the child, the adolescent, and the adult. And also, if they go to my podcast, at
Yeah,
theadultchair.com, the first 4 episodes of my podcast really break down. They're all like 20 to 30 minutes. They really
nice.
break down what each chair is. So, but yeah. And
And
of
then
course,
you
I've
have
got,
the second book.
huh?
You've got the
The what?
second book. The second
I'm
book?
writing that one, Natalie.
Okay.
I'm writing it. Yeah, it's coming.
It's
It's
coming.
coming.
Great. And when should
It's
we look for
coming.
that book? When should we look?
Oh gosh. I would hope this spring,
Nice.
yeah, I'm hoping for that. And for people that want monthly support,
Yeah.
we've got the adult chair membership. We call that the TAC tribe. So that's with people that really want to take a deep dive. So we do a
Okay.
monthly theme every single month. It's a new theme.
Awesome.
This month, what are we in? We're doing boundaries all month. So
Ooh,
you get a lecture, a meditation, weekly discovery work.
nice.
You get to watch me work with clients live. You get a live Q&A. And again, everything's at theadultchair.com.
Okay.
So there you go. And of course, you can come follow me on Instagram or Facebook. I'm all over the place, Natalie. What can
Yeah.
I say?
That's amazing. And I will be sure to put that in the show notes. And one last question or thought that we can maybe ponder is if you
Yeah.
had to give your program away to, or, offer your program to somebody that you felt like really needs it, perhaps some
Yeah.
sort of famous person, who would that person be?
If I had to offer, you mean the adult chair or
Yeah,
the sort of, what are you talking about?
the adult chair program. Like if you felt like
Model, like just offer them the, oh gosh, probably one of the Kardashians if I had to guess. Because they really need it. Is that what you mean? I would love to give it to yeah, I think that they could use their adult chair. Is that what you mean? Like who needs it more than anybody?
Yeah,
They
who
need
needs
it.
your program more than anybody? Okay, I love it.
Yeah,
That's
and
awesome.
I love them, but man, I think they could definitely use. You know what though, Natalie? I gotta say, everybody needs it. I need my adults some days
Yeah,
too. There's
yeah,
some people, of course, that need it more
yeah.
than others, and those are the people that are really in the dark, and they just don't know that they don't know what they don't
Yeah.
know. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, I agree. Well, Michelle, it has been a pleasure to have you on. Thank you so much for the laughs and the fun times and,
Thank you.
teaching me something new. That's why I do what I do. I'm always grateful to have people such as yourself to come on and learn from.
Thank you so much for having me. It was
Yeah,
really fun to be here with you. I appreciate
awesome.
it.
Thank you. Okay, thank you so much for tuning in to that episode of the show. Let me know what your thoughts are. Please do join us on Instagram and Facebook. Leave comments there. And as always, I do appreciate comments and suggestions to adatewithdarkness@gmail.com. Please also note, I get a lot of emails per day from people who read my blogs, both on my website and other media websites, blogs, videos, and also other podcast episodes and things like that. And sometimes people want to write me pretty lengthy pages and pages and pages of emails. So I'm not able to respond back to them, but please note I do try to read all of them and I respond as much as I can. I am a one-woman show. But the more concise, the better. Specifically, if you want me to answer a question about the show on the show, 1 to 2, maybe 3 sentences at most, and that will help me get to your information a lot faster. I know that a lot of you are hurting, and a lot of you out there have been through quite a lot. And you do want to share your stories, and your stories are important. But I'm not able to respond back very quickly to all of them. I'm just not able to. And it doesn't mean that I don't read it. It doesn't mean that I don't appreciate it, because I do. And I thank you so much for reaching out to me. But I will try to get back to you as soon as I can. So again, thank you so much for sitting with me and listening with me and Michelle. I will leave her information in the show notes as always. We are still in the middle of an epidemic, so be sure to be kind to yourselves and take care of yourselves and stay safe. Stay in as much as possible to limit exposure to COVID-19. And until next time, take care of yourselves and be well.